You know, both Labor and the Liberals have got to deal with a social disaster for younger Australians and poorer ones. Rents. Rents have just gone crazy. I mean, the average rent now for a house in Sydney has jumped to $750 a week. Now, it is cheaper in other cities, but not by that much. I mean, Canberra is $685, Perth $650 a week, Brisbane $620, and Melbourne is quite a bit less for some reason, but $570 a week is still steep. Now, you'll know as well as I that this is driven in large part by the federal government's insane decision to bring in more than 500,000 immigrants a year when we're not building anything like enough houses for them. Joining me is Louise Elliott, business consultant and Herbert City Councillor, and James McPherson, the Late Debate, a host there here on Sky News at 10 o'clock tonight, actually. You can catch him again. James, to me, this isn't just a political issue for the parties, with the Greens snapping up the young, because I'm not surprised they're getting more support from the young. It's a moral one and a social one. We're making a terrible mistake by making it almost impossible for many young Australians to buy a home, but also even to rent one.
Yeah, the housing crisis, Andrew, is a crisis entirely of the government's own making. According to the IPA, last year was the first time in history that Australia received more than 1 million immigrants. And a recent poll by the IPA found 71% of Australians believe mass migration is making it harder, if not impossible, to afford a home. And clearly, they're not wrong. So this problem we've got is that the government seem to want to drive the economy through increased migration rather than increased productivity gains, which, of course, are far more difficult to achieve, especially if you want to appease unions. So I say again, we have a housing crisis, but it's not come out of nowhere. It's a crisis manufactured by the government, and that could be solved by the government if they just did something about migration.
Louise, you know Louise Elliott, what makes me say it's a social disaster is not just that, you've got to give people reasonably affordable housing. You've got to make sure that's there. I mean, that's just a basic thing. But also, particularly with buying a house, you've got to give young Australians, and I call me sexist, but particularly young men, that sense of responsibility that they've got something that's their stake in Australia, and they better start settling down and helping to pay for that asset. I mean, it's a socialising influence, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely, and I agree. Anyone that wants to buy a house and is able and willing to work hard should be able to. It should be within reach. It should be achievable. And I agree, at times like this, it's not just more housing we need. We need more hospital beds, we need more schools, we need more infrastructure. We need to, therefore, have really hyper-focused immigration. It can't be open slather. We need to be very targeted in what we're doing, because the infrastructure and the basics that we need aren't there. And when it comes to rental affordability, Tasmania, in my neck of the woods, we're often the most unaffordable because our salaries are so much lower. So at the moment we're sitting on Hobart, it's about $550 a week, which is extravagant. I mean, when I was lucky enough to buy my first home as a single female, rents were a quarter of what they are today. So something needs to be turned around. It needs to be turned around quickly.
Oh, absolutely correct. I, for the life of me, cannot understand why this Labor government has just slammed the door shut on this mass immigration until we've got enough housing for Australians right now. James, a huge cultural change for the Olympics, or so it seems to me. The Paris Games in July. It's going to be the first ever in the Olympics, 128 years, to offer a cash prize for the winner in the athletics events. Second and third will get a cash prize 4 years later. $76,000 as well as the gold medal. The cash is coming to the World Athletics. Here is its president, Lord Sebastian Coe.
While we are recipients of broadcast revenue from an Olympic Games, that they are in large part the reason why we are in receipt of that revenue.
James McPherson, I know that Olympics is, anyone who wins has already got it made, but offering cash prizes, a little too crass against the Olympic spirit?
I don't know, Andrew. $75,000 for a lifetime of sacrifice and effort is not a lot of money. And while this will upset the purists, the fact is, you know, professionals have been playing at the Olympics for some time. I remember when the Dream Team, the USA basketball team, full of multi-millionaires, played at the Olympic Games, and people said, oh, this isn't good, and yet that was the greatest basketball the world had ever seen. As well as that, governments have been offering cash incentives to their own Olympic athletes for quite some time in various parts of the world. And on top of that, so many other people are making money from the Olympics. I mean, broadcasters make money, sponsors make money, vendors make money. The only people not making any money are the athletes. So for them to get a little bit of a cut, I don't think it's going to do any harm, and it's well justified, I believe.
I haven't seen too many poor gold medalists in athletics who've, you know, on the right, you know, never made a bean from the sport. I don't know, but Louise Elliott, maybe, I suppose James is right. It's all money, money, money now.
Well, I must admit, when I heard the news of that on the radio this morning, I felt a sort of uneasiness. I think it's because we do think of the Olympics and we think of pride in our country and the ultimate reward being representing your country and achieving great things. But I guess there is an inevitability to it. I mean, people have always, like you've said, they've made incomes indirectly through their success. But it does feel a little bit uncomfortable, but I guess it is something. It's the way of the world, and I guess we're not used to having it so overt when it comes to the Olympics.
It's such a strange change from days I remember when they used to go hunting the officials for anyone that might have earned $1 from their sport. You're out, you're out. And now, no, can we give you some money? I mean, it's just ridiculous. President Joe Biden has just given a big hint the United States might drop its most serious charges against Australian WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange and let him walk free with a minor charge, even though there was seemed a random way for Biden to announce it. Here he is.
Do you have a response to Australia's request that you end Julian Assange's prosecution?
We're considering it. James, the US wants Assange to stand trial for leaking secret information, like US military logs and all that kind of thing. Assange, to get out of this, spent 7 years hiding the Ecuadorian embassy in London until he was finally kicked out 4 years ago and arrested again, been since in a British jail, seeing if he'll be extradited. Has he suffered enough? Or is this a free speech issue? Where are you on this?
Yeah, look, Andrew, I understand why people are saying, look, enough is enough. We're sick of hearing about it. Just let the guy go. But the fact is, has he suffered enough? Well, he's only suffered because he's sought to avoid justice, or at least his day in court. So I believe that he should face court for what happened. He helped to hack into Pentagon computers. He didn't publish articles. He just dumped information on the internet without regard for how it would affect people who were named in that information. So I think America should pursue this because it's vital that nations are able to secure their secrets.
Except, Louise, you know, his barrister, one of them, Greg Barnes, told me once, look, there's an important principle here. Here's America trying to put in jail someone who's not a citizen and not in America for stuff that they think should have been illegal in America. I mean, how does that work? Where's the reach? I don't know. Where are you on this?
Well, from my perspective, I think that, like James, there needs to be consequences for action. You can't just avoid your day in court and drag it out long enough that people get sick of it. I think the middle ground in terms of reaching an agreement so that whatever Australia government has some sort of parameters put around what can happen, and if he is to serve prison, it's in Australia. But I'm actually firstly worried about why we're giving so much weight to Joe Biden's comment. To me, it looked as if it was a comment that it was a default answer, he says, when he actually hasn't understood the question and he doesn't know what else to say. So I'll just say, we're considering it.
That is a very good point. James McPherson, Louise Elliott, thank you very much to you both.